Chapter 35. Leonie had been thrust from the gallery of her mind and back into reality with the blunt force of a battering ram. She was a prisoner, her body wrapped in vines which moved about her, propped her up like a doll. Everything about here was foreboding and dark, a treeless expanse of dead grass, burnt stumps. Even the sky pressed down upon her and behind her. Leonie could sense Starodavna, a chill running up her spine, fear so strong her heart beat out of rhythm. I am not dead, she thought to herself over and over again. She'd been trained for capture, her father being paranoid in that way. She'd been taught to keep herself calm, to hold her tongue, to keep her wits about her. Of course, training only did so much, and nothing would have prepared her for a magical enchantress who could lull her to sleep in the middle of a forest and then entrap her in a magical vine. Still, Leonie kept breathing and took stock of her situation as best she could. First, Leonie could not tell if Tal was trapped as well, or if she had died protecting Leonie while she lay unconscious. Orelda cried off to her right, but Leonie could see no one to her left. Tal's absence was unnerving, for Leonie had grown to rely on the ranger. At least Leonie's weapons were still with her, her sword sheathed, a few knives tucked in various places. But the vines held her tight, and she doubted that she could reach them. Lastly, and perhaps most importantly, Starodavna wanted them alive, for now. Leonie knew she was bait, which was odd because it was Starodavna. Because if Starodavna had searched her memories, she would have understood that Leonie's well-being would not lure the woodsman into a trap. Unless there was another game that Starodavna played, or some trap that she had set. But what that could be, Leonie could not imagine. Leonie had gotten only one glimpse of Starodavna before being spun about. But what she saw was terrifying. A statue with a cloak of black stone, which absorbed rather than reflected the moonlight above. A woman made of blackened wood, still and foreboding. Leonie thought about making a threat, perhaps shouting that her father would burn the wood to ash unless she was released. But something inside Leonie was broken now, crippled. Starodavna had seen inside her, had commandeered the most sacred place in Leonie's world. What could she possibly say to scare such a being as this? Orelda cried beside Oli. Orelda cried beside her. Leonie could see vines slowly cutting through the woman's back and calves, torturing her, drawing out those cries. Leonie could do nothing for her, and it took all her effort to keep breathing and to stay reasonably calm. Dropping her gaze, Leonie tried to look as pathetic as she felt, while her mind scrambled for a plan. Meanwhile, she shifted her hands further down toward her boot and to the knife that she kept there. The vines tightened as she moved, but she felt her fingers get close. It was a desperate thing, thinking that she could get a hold of her knife and free herself. What would she do after cutting the vines holding her? Fight her way back to Watchful in time for the Yelma's invasion? Coming here to this place had been Leonie's desperate plan. To convince or force this power to rise up and destroy the forces of Katsaraka, as it had been done before. Please, Leonie said, trying to raise her voice above Orelda's cries. Listen! The Dark Ones have returned. My kingdom needs your help. Release me and come to our aid. Ah! Pain gripped Leonie's arm as the vine yanked tighter, thorns biting through her skin. Starodavna heard her, it seemed, and pain was her answer. Oliver! Orelda screamed, her voice curling in pain. Leonie looked up, blinking away tears. There he was, hood down, stalking toward them, his bow at the ready. At least he knows it's a trap. The sight of him filled Leonie with a pure, unadulterated elation. He was, very literally, her only hope. Well, perhaps not her only hope. Tal trailed him, looking the worse for wear. Whatever she had experienced since Leonie fell asleep by the stream had not been pleasant. Now, though, she followed behind Oli with her bow likewise ready. When the pair of them were 2 or 3 dozen feet away, Stardavna spoke. The sound of her voice was a carpenter's rasp, rolling across wood grain, each syllable pushing its way into Leonie's skull. Lick me och, Sayan.